Bevin, welcome to Coffee and Tea with CarrieVee. I have been looking forward to this conversation since the very first time we spoke.
Me too. I have been counting the days. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. I think I'm more excited because we get to hear your story, and I can't wait to share this with everyone who has the opportunity to watch and listen. So let's just jump right in with Bevin's story and how powerful and life-changing it is.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
My story, the story that I tell, I will say my story actually started way before this, but the story that I usually tell, it starts in 2019. So on Mother's Day, my husband, Mark, surprised me with 4 bottles of Bordeaux wine and a note he'd written in French, which he didn't speak French. So this seemed a little strange, but he was taking us to France for my 40th birthday, which would be 6 months later in November. And of course, that sounds so romantic, right? Oh, 6 months of planning. But we had 2 kids. We had a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old. So we actually needed the time to plan. But it was going to be just the two of us, which was really exciting. 2 weeks after that, I went in for my annual review thinking I was getting a promotion. And instead, I lost my job. Like I said, we had a
Mhm.
4-month-old. We had just taken money out of our savings so that I could take a full 3-month maternity leave. We'd bought a van. We were absolutely not expecting this. We were actually very excited about the direction that the two of our careers were going in. That was the third time that I had lost my job in under 10 years. And
Wow.
at that point, I said to Mark, I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to keep putting the financial health of our family into the hands of any one person. Because
Mhm.
when you lose your job, you lose all of your income in an instant. And I said,
Yes.
well, let me try to start a business where I can support small business owners and entrepreneurs to do the things I've been doing for the past 10 years: brand direction, launch management, strategy, all of those things that are so important to grow your business. But if you don't really need a full-time COO or brand director, it was a perfect fit. And I told him, I said, let's do a proof of concept. Let me see if I can make $5,000 by the end of August. I made $0 in June, $1,000 in July. I hit my $5,000 mark in August. And by the time we were going to go on our trip, I had made $35,000 in my business.
Wow.
So it was picking up. I was really excited, pleasantly surprised. But this trip still seemed totally crazy because we were going to be in planes about the same amount of time we were on the ground.
Mhm.
And I thought, should we just not go? Is this just too crazy? We decided to go and had an amazing time. Drank delicious wine, had fantastic food, wandered through Bordeaux, which neither of us had ever been to before. Really just reconnecting to who we were before we had kids, before we got married, before we had these stressful careers. And Mark even looked at me at one point and he said, I feel like I'm reconnecting, rediscovering the real you, which just felt so true for both of us. We flew home and it was the week before Thanksgiving, which has always been my favorite holiday. But Mark had taken the entire week off work. So we got ready around the house. It was pre-pandemic. So we had 25 people coming.
Mhm.
His parents were driving in, my family, our best friends. We took our daughter to her first movie theater show that week. And the day after Thanksgiving, I went upstairs to wake up Mark and he wasn't breathing. And he had passed away in the middle of the night, completely unexpectedly. We had no idea that this was coming. He had undiagnosed heart disease. One of his
Oh,
arteries was 95% blocked and the other was 50% blocked.
oh my gosh.
So now I'm a solo parent of 2 kids under the age of 3, the sole financial provider with a brand new business. It was growing, but it hadn't stood the test of time yet. And I'm doing all of this without the love of my life and my best friend, and honestly, my biggest cheerleader. I made a post about a month later on Facebook talking about losing Mark, talking about my birthday and that trip we had taken. And I ended that post by saying, whenever you're faced with a choice, just take the damn trip. That really resonated with people. And I got so many messages from people just saying how they had had a special trip with somebody they loved before they passed away, or they were going to say no to a trip coming up, but now they were going to say yes. And more importantly, I started to have conversations with people around not pushing their dreams to the side anymore. And instead taking the chance on themselves. And so I changed it to take the damn chance. And I really looked at the hardest things that I've been through. So I didn't just lose Mark at the age of 40. I lost my dad to cancer when I was 24. I lost my home in a house fire in 2010. My kiddos are IVF babies. So I've been through years of fertility treatments and a miscarriage. I lost my job 3 times, like all of these really hard things. And
Yes.
then I also looked at the most amazing things that I've created. So having those kiddos, building a business successfully, building our dream home, building this relationship with Mark that was so connected and strong. And I asked myself, what is it that I do differently than other people to navigate these situations? I'm not saying better, I'm saying differently. And that is where I started to come up with the DAM framework. So everything I do is based around the word DAM, but it does mean something. I'm not just a little bit sweary. It stands for decide and declare, attend your own party, moments, not minutes, and now is the time. And I've used that to create what I call the do the damn thing method. And Carrie, let me tell you, everything that I do, every amazing thing that I've created in my life has been because of this do the damn thing method. Now, some of it was looking back and seeing how I had done it. But once I started to see those things, I couldn't unsee them. And so the most amazing, my biggest, boldest dream to date was that when Mark passed away, we were 60 days away from starting our next round of IVF. And I didn't want to lose my dream of being a mom of 3 at the same instant that I lost my best friend. So in July of 2021, I had Mark's and my 3rd child, my daughter, Mirastella. She was born 20 months after Mark passed away using embryos that we had frozen from a previous IVF treatment. So everything that was, and I did those same things, right? There's 3 steps to the do the damn thing method are I crafted my damn manifesto. I figured out my yes and my 6-dimensional why in that. I found my damn people. I found the people who could be my cheerleaders and my support. And then I got the damn results. I did the damn thing. So I I ended up with a child. That was my result in that. But it just showed me how powerful this is in every single area of our lives. And that is my passion, is helping people do the damn thing and live their big, bold, wonderful life.
Your story sends chills down my spine in every time I hear it. Every time I think about it, since we first spoke and you told me your story, I have ruminated and thought about this journey that you have been on and doing the damn thing. And my logo is life is short, choose wisely. And I feel like they tie together so well.
Yeah.
And yours takes it to this piece of just get out there and do it. Stop dreaming about it and take the steps to make it happen.
Yeah.
Stop overthinking this and just take the step.
Right.
What do you think gave you and gives you the strength to keep moving on when life can feel like, why are you against me, life? Why just go pick on somebody else, right?
I think it's so funny that you say it that way. So I mentioned I lost my home in a house fire in 2010. Well, in the span of 16 days, I lost my job. That was the first time I lost my job. My car got broken into, and then my house burned down. And I used to joke that my dad was up there being like, knock, 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 give her a break. She's had enough. Like, just step away. And I do think, I just had a conversation with somebody about this yesterday, where just because I understand these mindsets and these powerful steps doesn't mean that life isn't hard and life doesn't get hard. In fact, these last, 3 to 6 months have been the hardest since Mark died. And it's not that life doesn't get hard for me. And it's not that there aren't moments where I do feel exactly how you just said that, like, oh my God, why does it have to be this hard? It's just that after letting myself feel those feelings, I don't stuff them down. I don't pretend that they're not there. I also still know the steps to keep moving forward. And when I thought back to how did I get through the weeks and months after Mark had passed away? I saw that I had distilled it down to my yes and why. And at the time, my yes was keeping my kids safe and healthy, keeping myself safe and healthy, and keeping our home, because Mark and I built this home together, and I wanted to keep our home. In order to do those things, I needed to keep my business running because I needed to be able to support my family, myself, and keep our home. That was it. I didn't have the capacity to do a lot more than that. I wasn't out like making new friends. I was relying heavily on my current friends. I wasn't out there, taking dance lessons or whatever else. I was focused on that yes and that why. And I was taking what I call micro actions. So the end for now is a time is really built around the truth that the hardest place to be in any project is standing still at the start. And the way that we get started is through micro actions, which are the smallest possible action that you will actually take. In the days after Mark passed away, that action was sometimes opening my eyes, pushing the covers back. And that might mean pushing the covers back, getting dressed, and getting right back into bed, because that might have been all that I had the capacity to do.
Mhm.
And if I was feeling like, just get up and take a shower, and I still was paralyzed and pinned to the bed, that wasn't broken down small enough. And that was where I would say, just push the covers back and then you can take a break. Just swing your feet over, just stand up, just take the first step. Because every single thing that we do is just a series of micro actions, but they become easier and bigger and they come faster. So if you said you're going to record a podcast episode, the first one that you did was probably more like, okay, plug my microphone in, let me get it adjusted, open up the program, plug my headphones in, all those things. Well, now it's just, oh, I got to go record a podcast episode. You're still doing all of those things, but you're not needing to break them down so small in order to get your feet moving.
That's such a great way for me to picture it. And like driving a car or
Right.
riding a bike.
Right.
You're right. We're still doing all those things, but we're doing them automatically.
Yeah. When you first learn how to drive a car, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to buckle myself in. I'm going to adjust the rear view mirror. I'm going to adjust the side view mirror. I'm going to, just get situated, all of those little steps. I'm going to turn the key or push the button. And now we do it, but we just don't think about it in those small incremental steps because we've practiced. And the analogy I use a lot is those metal merry-go-rounds that we had on playgrounds when we were kids.
Mhm.
And when it was standing still, everybody grabbed a bar, and those first few steps were really hard, and everybody leaned into it, and you had to take the first step, and then they started to come easier, and then they were faster, and then you jumped on and you spun and had so much fun. And when you wanted to keep it going, you just put your little foot out and kicked it and hoped you didn't break an ankle. We didn't wait until it was fun to take the first step.
How powerful.
We held this belief that if we took enough steps in the right direction, we would get the payoff. It would be fun. And that's how we have to think about life sometimes, is we get really clear on our yes and our why. That's that damn manifesto. And then we take steps in that direction. And I have the full faith that if you do that, you will achieve your goals.
This is so powerful. I am envisioning being on that playground. I just never really thought about the fact that it wasn't fun to get it going.
No, it was
The
heavy
fun
and it was
came when we
hard.
were all spinning. It was.
Right.
Yeah. It was. And if we go back to the podcast analogy, the first few podcasts I recorded were a lot of work.
Yeah. And
It
you
was
didn't know if
not
anyone was going to
fun.
listen.
No.
You didn't know what people were going to think. You didn't know if you were going to get positive reviews, but you just thought, you know what? The way you define your yes is it's the thing you're willing to make your top priority over anything else right now. And you keep pursuing it until it no longer makes sense to do so. It doesn't mean you're going to do it for the rest of your life. One of my dear friends just put her podcast on hiatus, and she'd done like 2 years worth. And she said in it, I don't know that it's goodbye forever. I am sad about it, but it just makes sense for me to move on to something else. And we always have that ability to do that. I think sometimes we get ourselves in this mindset of, well, I got to keep going. That inertia. It's that same thing,
Yeah.
when I say the hardest place to be is at the beginning, because an object at rest tends to stay at rest. Well, an object in motion also tends to stay in motion.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we have to think, am I on this path purely out of inertia, or am I done? Am I ready to make a change because I'm actually more excited about something else? And I don't need to wait till it's miserable. I don't need to wait till something traumatic happens. I can just check in with myself and say, it's time to make a change.
Yes. I have never thought of it in that way before. We hear an object at rest stays at rest all the time, but not putting that into the inertia as well. Are we just doing this because we've always done it?
Yeah.
Or
Well,
because we've been doing it for a while?
and human beings are the only animal that will, I always say, human beings are the only animal that are going to poop where they eat to make a change, right? That it's the only ones that are going to make ourselves miserable before we're willing to make a change.
Yes.
But we don't have to do that. We can love our job and still make a change when it makes sense to do so. And, we don't have to wait till we're so unhealthy that we have to get into shape or we have to change our food choices.
Yes.
We can just decide, you know what? I'm okay where I'm at, but I could be happier over there.
Well, this is so powerful. This is so powerful. I'm going to switch our gears a little bit because I'm looking at the clock going, how can we already be 17 minutes into this podcast? And before we pushed record, we talked a little bit about the difference between being able to sit with someone while they are passing away versus, in your case, going upstairs and someone is already gone. I
Yeah.
would love to hear your viewpoint on this. This is a conversation I have with a lot of people. With the loss I have had in my life, I kind of naturally fall into grief coaching. And it's a conversation that is had all the time. And my only experience is with sitting with someone while they're passing.
Right.
And not
Yeah.
the experience you've had. So I'd love to hear your take on this.
Yeah. So I've talked a lot about this with Mark, but I also actually want to talk about it with my dad, because this is really how the M of Moments Not Minutes began for me.
Okay.
So my dad had lung cancer, and by the time they diagnosed it, his tumor was the size of a softball, and it had metastasized to his leg in a tumor so big that it broke his femur. And that was July of 2003 when he was diagnosed. And in March of 2004, I went home just to visit. I had moved to Chicago during that time. He wouldn't let me stay in Ohio. I'd moved to Chicago, and I just came home to visit him. And there was a day where he was going to be alone because we were moving him from his home to an assisted living facility. So I decided to stay an extra day. And during that day, he was taking a nap. And so I went into the family lounge and I wrote him a letter. And it was like all the important moments of our life. Dancing with him at my sister's wedding, like the day I graduated from college, and he got pulled over because he was so excited that he didn't notice that there was a no turn on red. And so he told the cop that, and he got off with a warning. Like all of these moments, like it wasn't like, there was no indication from the doctors, like, this is my final time home to see him. It was just, hey, I just want to share these moments with you. And I was going to mail him the letter, and because it felt really awkward to hand it to him, but I decided to hand it to him. So I was like, Dad, here's just some things I was thinking of. I love you. I'll call you when I get back to Chicago. I called him the next day, or I called him and I said, hey, I'm home. And he said, Bevin, thank you so much for this letter. It means so much to me. And that was the last time I talked to my dad, because he passed away the next morning. And as hard as that was to lose my dad, I had so much comfort in knowing that he knew how much I loved him. The letter was on his nightstand. And when I think about losing Mark, and I've thought about, would it have been better if we had known? And in our case, I don't think that it would have been, because I think we might have lived a different life had we known that there was nothing we could do about his heart disease, that truly at any moment he could just die. At any night, we could be saying goodnight for the last time. We might not have had our son, Jonathan, because he might not have wanted to leave me as a solo parent of 2 kids. We might not have gone on that trip. And I'll tell you, it was looking back, he had these headaches, and he went to the doctor and said, I'm having these weird headaches. And they said, well, you're a parent of 2 and you drink a lot of caffeine, so it's probably just migraines. And what they didn't know was he wasn't getting enough blood to his brain. But you don't go to the doctor with a headache and look for a brain tumor, right? You don't hear hoofbeats and look for zebras. But he had one of those headaches on the plane going to going to France. And so, he could have just as easily passed away on that plane.
Yes.
And we didn't know that. And so, even though I would give anything to have another day with him, to have another hour with him, I don't know that knowing would I think it would have changed how we lived in a negative way. And so what I want to say about that is, I don't think that there's a better way. I don't think that if somebody passes away unexpectedly, that's better than knowing. And I don't think that knowing is better than somebody passing away unexpectedly. I think that we have a situation, and this is my belief in everything. I say we can't choose what happens to us. We can only choose how we respond.
Exactly.
And so on the days that I want to hurt more and I want to be more frustrated, then I could sit here and say, man, I wish we'd known. I wish we'd known for a year.
Mhm.
But that's not what happened. And so instead, I just choose to respond. But what I do know is that the night before he died, we stood in our kitchen and we talked about how amazing it was that our family had come together. And he thanked me for bringing people together. He's like, that's your doing. And we told each other that we loved each other. And, we celebrated this seemingly small moment. Now, do I wish that when our daughter had come in and woken him up at 4 because she was awake, like, do I wish I'd gotten to say I love you one more time? Yes, I do. And I didn't have that chance, but I knew that I took the chance to tell him I loved him the day before.
Yeah. I love that you wrote your father this letter. And it's something that I'm thinking, I'm going to take the time to do this with everyone in my life that I love now, so they always have it. And so that I know that I have said those things. I think all of this has just touched me in so deeply, Bevin, so incredibly deeply, hearing the story of pain and the story of rising up and allowing yourself to feel the hurt, which is the part I think a lot of people miss. Just put your big girl panties on and stand back up. It is not that easy, nor do I think we should be doing that. I think we need to feel the pain.
I think we need to feel all of the emotions. So I say, my oldest daughter is 6.5. And so she remembers her dad more than the other 2. Jonathan was 10 months old. Maristella wasn't even born yet. And there are so many times where she'll just say, I just miss daddy. When is he coming back? Are they going to bring him back? And we talk about it. We don't say, oh, daddy's fine. We talk about daddy sitting on the moon and we blow him kisses. But I say it's okay to be sad. It's also okay to be happy. There is no such thing as a bad emotion. It's just that we attach connotations to it of this is negative. It's bad to be sad or angry. It's good to be happy. I had to feel that grief. I've said that so many times, is like when my dad passed away and I would feel so sad, I would dive into that sadness and let myself feel deliciously sad. Because when we do that, when we allow ourselves to feel all of those emotions, they tend to pass faster, because when we fight them, it's like an emotional riptide. That's when we drown, because we're trying to pretend that they're not there. We're trying to stuff them under the water, and they're just going to burst out like a beach ball when in a very inopportune, inexplicable moment, when it's something so seemingly benign, like somebody cuts you off in traffic and all of a sudden you're hysterically sobbing, not because of the person who cut you off in traffic, but because you've been holding on to that so tightly that the littlest thing will make it snap.
Yes. What a great point. This conversation needs to go on. So I'm going to ask you right here on the air to please come back.
I would love to come back anytime.
Thank you. We would love that too. This conversation, there's so much more that we could talk about and that I would love to talk about. And can you tell us about your book? Normally I ask these questions in a different order, but I want to make sure we cover, how can we find you? How can we get our hands on your book? What is your book? All those things, because I know everyone is saying, I want more of this woman in my life. So please let us know how we can do that.
Well, the book is called Your Damn Manifesto, and it's discovering the keys to personal transformation and bringing your biggest dreams to life. You can find it on Amazon. You can go to yourdamnmanifesto.com, which will take you to my website. You can, get all the details there. Obviously, you love podcasts because you're listening to this amazing one. So you can also listen to my podcast, which is All the Damn Things. And in it, I just show you how I apply these mindsets and these steps into my own life, and how you can do the same in yours in every important area of your life.
Oh, thank you. And I will, for those of you listening or watching, I will link all of these underneath the show. So you could just go click a link and go get Bevin's book, tap into her website. All right. The question we're all waiting for, everyone who listens to this podcast: what is your version of your pow pow shoes? And you can answer that however you want.
So a friend of mine told me years ago, this is funny because I think people are going to think, oh, it's, resilience or anything like this. He would say my superpower is turning strangers into friends. So making friends.
I love that.
And, one of the things you said about like pulling your big girl panties on and like moving on, I don't think we need to share what happened to us. I don't think we need to share our trauma. I do. And I think that when we are willing to share our stories, it does make people feel less alone. And I think because I'm so willing to do that and I'm so willing to hear people's stories, it helps me make connections to people.
Yes. That is definitely a superpower of yours. I felt like we were besties the first time we talked.
I love it. I love it.
Definitely. And can you leave us with a writing prompt, something to get us thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking about this too. And the journal prompt that I would just like to have everybody say or to work on is, who are 3 people that you really love deeply? And you can spend a little bit of time on each one of them, why you love them. What is it that they make you feel? What's the experience? And then call one of them and just you don't have to spend the time to write them a letter like we were talking about. You certainly can, but don't keep that to yourself. Just, if you want to call all 3 and get extra credit, great, but call them. And all you have to do is just say, hey, I love you. You can tell them the reasons if you want, but just journaling on those reasons is going to help you feel that love so deeply that you almost can't not call and tell them.
Oh, I still have chills running up and down my spine from this whole conversation. Bevin, you are one of the most powerful women I've ever talked to.
Oh, thank you.
I can't wait to have you back. I can't wait to help you spread your story. And I can't thank you enough for being on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
You're so welcome.